go into discussing what we just went through, and then we're going to get into conducting a health status questionnaire and a Part Q, which are two forms in the industry that you'll come across. So to start, let's open your workbook to page 5, and you'll see that there's a chart to talk about what kinds of cues and statements you heard me say, and also what types of exercises you saw. So let's discuss that. We're going to start with the warm-up. Was there anything that you heard me say that kind of struck you or got you going or anything like that?
That we want to get our heart rate up, preparation for continued exercise.
Yes.
Get our muscles heated up to move, to get going and sit down.
Right, so the warm-up, it's a great idea to talk about why you are warming up. And one of the main reasons, and we'll go over this again and again through our lessons, but the main reason is to get the blood flowing so that you can get oxygen to each muscle group, and so that the body is safely taken from a resting state to a working state. So you want to get that blood flow to the muscles, the oxygen to the muscles, and to safely take the heart rate from resting to working. Now, what about cues that I said to generate excitement?
Smile.
Yeah.
Enjoy the beat and feel it.
Yeah, feel the beat, enjoy the beat. Those are great cues.
Do what's comfortable for you.
Absolutely. You always want to do what's comfortable for you. And you'll have more people attend your class if you keep reiterating that you are comfortable if they are doing what they feel is right for them. So when people have that comfort level, they come back to class, they really enjoy it. I usually try to say that in the warm-up. I like to ask people how they're doing that day, get them going and say, are you ready to work out? And some people will say no. And you'll say, well, I'm going to get you ready to work out. Here we go. So you'll find that you have these catchphrases that you say, and when you go experience other people's classes, like we're going to have you do for your homeworks, you're going to hear these catchphrases that people use. Mine, I love to say, here we go, add a clap. So there's some people snap during their classes, that sort of thing. So let's move on to the cardiorespiratory activity. So that was when we were getting into some of the choreographed routine. Was there any cues you heard me say then?
Those are probably more the ones that you said feel the beat too.
Yeah.
Get the heart pumping.
Get the heart pumping. How about some directional cues?
Yes.
Yes.
Go to the right. Yes.
To the right,
Up,
to the left.
back.
Yes.
So you can signal those. You can, the counts, always in 4s, 8s. Good. And let's talk about some of the exercises we did in that portion. And these you'll remember as you're going along. It's kind of tough on the first day, but you'll learn the names of the moves. So, yeah, the grapevine. Most people know the grapevine. I was saying earlier, my students in my sports conditioning camp, I told them to do a grapevine to the cone and back, and they said, what's a grapevine? And I said, karaoke? And they're like, oh, karaoke, yeah, we know that. I'm like, I'm not that 80s, I swear. So it can also be known as the karaoke. The stroll, we did the stroll forward. I like to add a kick to my stroll. Some people add a little dance movement down and back up, kind of like the electric slide. So you can add a little style and variation. We did some jumping jacks. And we're going to have a whole lab where we go over 2-count moves and 4-count moves, but just to get an idea, those are some of the popular ones: the step touch, the grapevine, the stroll.
We did some knees.
High knee, yeah. That's a big one. You see that used a lot in kickboxing routines as well to warm up the hips. Moving on to muscle conditioning, what were some cues or statements I said?
Definitely use the weight that you're comfortable with.
Use the weight that you're comfortable with.
Make sure our backs are flat and not rounded. Make sure the abs are tight.
Yeah, those are common cues. Keep the back flat. Make sure your shoulders aren't rounded. Pull the navel to spine. And when you're going to other instructors' classes, you're going to hear a lot of different cues for that. You're going to hear some analogies. Okay? So I have one instructor who says, pretend you're holding a diamond in your belly button. And that helps people contract their spine, or contract their abdominal region rather, and pull their navel to their spine. What were some exercises you were familiar with for the muscle conditioning portion?
Push-ups, of course.
Push-ups.
The raises.
Lateral raises.
Bicep curls, right?
Yep, bicep curls. In class, you'll find there's very few ways to add variety to your bicep curls, so you might play with pace. So that's why I did different paces for that. And you'll see when I was going up and down, I wanted to do 1 count, but the music was a little too quick for that, so I switched. There's a range of music you can use for muscle conditioning, and we'll be getting into that. Usually between, I believe your text is 120 and 136 for that. But you're going to be noticing a big difference in the ranges at the high end that your book recommends, and then the low end. The low end, you might be able to do a single count of those higher ranges. We were using about 134 beats per minute for that, so it was a little too quick to do that. So we went to a little gentle pulse. So it's safer. You're in a shorter range of motion, and you're able to hit the beat, and you get a nice burn. And you can do a pulse up here if you want, a pulse in the middle, and then a pulse down at the bottom if you really want to burn. But you also want to be careful of how many reps you're doing on those things. You don't want to do too much. Otherwise, you can end up with overuse injuries. So. Okay, let's move into the flexibility and cool down portion. So I did a cardio cool down with you first with some stretches. That was before we went into muscle conditioning. And that was quite different than the muscle conditioning stretch. What exercises do you remember me doing for the cardio cool down?
Squats.
Squats.
Are the big muscles.
A nice, taking it down from that cardiovascular work, working those large muscle groups, to a gentle squat. We didn't do
Shoulder stretches.
Yeah, we did shoulder stretches. We did, this is your delts. We did a nice side stretch, which I happen to really love the side bends. Any torso rotations. We spend most of our day in forward flexion, so a lot of people are rounded. These muscles tighten. They can't really twist too much. Or my favorite is when you have someone who types over here, and then they come to you and they're like this, and then you do an assessment on them and you find out that they're typing like this 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, and then your work is to get that back to normal. So it's a little bit of a challenge. How about for the more relaxing flexibility section, the very end?
Use the stability ball.
Yep, so that's part of the muscle conditioning.
Mhm.
Yep, that was right before we went into the flexibility. Figure four.
Oh, yes. Crunches, can we do crunches?
That was in the muscle,
Okay.
the muscle portion.
Oh, we did the side
Side,
quad stretch.
side quad stretch.
Yes.
It's a great modification for individuals who are unable to do it standing and balancing.
We did a back stretch and
Child's pose,
Mm-hmm.
very popular stretch these
I
days.
love that pose.
That's great. Cobra.
Yes.
I had been teaching a Pilates class with a relaxation segment at the end, and some people attend my muscle class and they asked me to just continue doing my muscle stretch. So that's, you guys experience what I tend to do for my muscle classes. And I've tried to go away from it a little bit, and usually they want to go right back to this one. So I give them something different so that their bodies don't adapt too much for a little while, and then I'll bring them back to the one that they really enjoy. Now, for your use, we have different music than what we're using in class today. We have to use a little bit different music today because of licensing and copyright laws. So you will all have access to what we're calling a general format, because that's what your test is, a general format, and it's popular music. We get into copyright and licensing discussion more in your lecture, a couple lectures from now. But it's important that you know that there is going to be music for you guys to use that's popular, and it has a different feel to it than just the instrumental. Both are great. Muscle Mixes has provided us with those samples, and you'll hear a lot more instrumental while you guys are working with me over the next 9 classes. You guys have that music for free with your class tuition, so enjoy that. And you guys can download that at home. We'll have that available for you. Okay? Does anyone have any questions?
How long would you say you can do a certain routine before you think the muscles have adapted to that and it's not as beneficial?
I say about 4 to 6 weeks. It depends on the age group that you're working with. We have different age groups adapt more quickly, and because of muscle memory, we have our more athletic individuals or people who have had more experience with exercise. They're going to adapt much more quickly. They might be the 3 to 4 week range, and that's what research is showing, is the 3 to 4 weeks for those more active individuals and people with exercise in their past. And then it's more the 6 to 8 week range for people who have not been exercising in the past. And then you have your more elderly individuals, or well, what we're finding is the baby boomer generation is a little more fit than they were. They've been working out quite a bit, but your more elderly individuals, it's going to take them a good 10 to 12 weeks to adapt, and you're probably working a little bit more one-on-one with them because they're going to need a little more spotting and that sort of thing. In my classes, I tend to use the same music with the same routine, and I will keep that routine for about 3 weeks, and then people start to say, we're looking forward to a new routine. What do you have coming for us next? Not all instructors do that. Some of them change their music every week. But when you do have a little bit more of a class load, I find that it's a little more beneficial to you and the stress on the instructor to have a schedule and that sort of thing. So every 3 weeks or so, I switch my music and my whole routine.
And if you're doing different classes throughout the day, you're still using the same?
No, I have, you change it up. You're going to learn about that in this course. For different kinds of exercise classes, you will have a certain beats per minute that you're recommended to use. You can use anything in that range. So for my muscle conditioning class, I have a totally different music selection than my cardio classes and than my Pilates classes. And if you have a beginner class versus advanced class, it's going to change a little bit about how you teach. Okay, our next segment, we're going to get into the health status questionnaire.